Ladies and gentlemen, normally we don't do guests on the program. When the vice presidential candidate calls and wants on Governor Pence, we accommodate, of course. I reached out to the chairman of the Republican National Committee, Reince Priebus today. And I think we have him now. Mr. Priebus, welcome to the EIB Network, sir. It's great to have you here.
It's a complete honor to be on your show, Rush. Thank you for having me.
You bet. I want to talk to you for a number of reasons, but first and foremost, on election night, I was one of the many who stayed up till beyond 3 o'clock to listen to Mr. Trump's speech, and he was effusive in his praise for you, and you're essentially creating the ground game operation for him to get out the vote effort. And it was such a shock to a lot of people. And it turns out we look at the magnitude of this win, Mr. Priebus. It's stunning. The Republican Party, it turns out, has more power in Washington and throughout the country in terms of just elective offices at all levels than at any time since the 1920s. Hillary Clinton had 6 million fewer voters than Barack Obama had in 2012. We have, since Obama campaigned for her on the basis that her election meant the continuation of his legacy and agenda, we could say that it was repudiated. The American people showed up in droves and repudiated the Democrat Party agenda. And it was a shock to, Trump winning was a shock to many, not me, but it was a shock to many. And the depth of the Democrat loss was really a shock to everybody.
Well, you predicted, and by the way, you put your neck out back in May. You predicted this, you felt it, and you said it a long time ago. And, really it just comes back to a couple things. One, you're right. The ground operation at the RNC was the biggest operation I think either national parties have ever put together. We had way more people on the ground than anyone understood or gave credit to us for. We put over 120 million in data, understanding everything about voters, what beer they drink, what car they drive, what motivates people, how many kids they have. And all of that information made a difference. But let's just put that aside. The reality is that we had the right candidate. Donald Trump was the candidate that authentically captured the vehicle where everyone wanted to go as far as being the change candidate, but being a candidate that people actually believed would go to Washington and do what he said when he said drain the swamp. When he said drain the swamp, if anyone else said that, at least a lot of these folks that were running, it may not be believable because there's, politicians say a lot of things. But when he said we're going to drain the swamp, people believed it. He represented something bigger than the day-to-day stories in Politico and other magazines that just have to fill space. And that was authentic because it was a change election. We had a change candidate that was authentically making the case, and we're running against someone who has spent their entire life and made millions upon millions of dollars in politics. It was just a classic case of momentum and running with the flow of the river and having the infrastructure in place to capture the moment.
Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention something. I was struck, honestly, by the complete 180-degree turnaround by Speaker Ryan yesterday in his effusive praise for Trump. I'm not making things up here. There were many, many Republicans, not you, don't misunderstand, elected Republicans who really thought Trump was going to finish this party by losing in the biggest landslide since Barry Goldwater. And they made no bones about it, and they made public their lack of effort or desire to help him, and they lost some of those. A couple of those people lost. Yeah. And when Trump comes around and wins, why, all of a sudden he's the greatest candidate ever had. But they didn't think that until he won. And this is obvious to people. Now, I know everybody wants to get on a winning train and everybody wants to shine in the light of a winner. But is this belief in Trump now, do you think I know it's putting you on the spot, is it legitimate with some of these people who disavowed Trump? Not just elected to, we got some conservative so-called media people that just, none of this was supposed to happen, and they didn't want it to happen. There were some, Mr. Priebus, hoping for a Republican landslide loss.
Yeah, no question. I mean, there are some there's a few out there that really had no excuse doing what they did. And I've talked about that, and I agree with you on that. But I can tell you, I think it's important for Republicans to come together now regardless, and it is good to show a positive public face, and that we do get this party together, and we are together. We're bigger, like you said, we're bigger than ever, but it's important that leaders and elected officials get on board. But in regard to the other comment, I will tell you that in regard to Speaker Ryan, totally on board and wanting to work with President-elect Trump. They just had a positive meeting just right next door.
I just saw them out there on the balcony.
Yeah, and he's genuine. It's totally genuine. And by the way, especially, the last few weeks, he's been on the campaign trail with Mike Pence. He would have been, I know firsthand because I know what the scheduling and the planning was, he was planning on being at the rally in Waukesha with President-elect Trump. And then, of course, you saw Sunday night he put out the statement and continued throughout. The point of all of this is that I agree with your assessment. Some of the things that went on I thought were wrong, and I made it clear that they were wrong. And I think some people were very shocked. I was on the side of understanding what my job was, and I did it, and I was loyal, and we built the biggest operation we could build, and it helped, and we got it done. I'm proud of the work that we did, but I'm proud of our candidate.
Well, I don't want to speak out of school, but I know how people tend to sometimes hear people in politics. I just want to vouch for what Mr. Priebus just said. He came with Scott Spicer. They came to meet me here in the Sean Spicer back in the spring. It was April or May, and I tell everybody, you have been on board the train of the nominee from the get-go. You've never been in anywhere near trying to undermine anybody's candidacy. When whoever the nominee was, you were all in, and that I just want people to know you're not just saying this today. Yeah, no, and you know what? That's the job of a competent national party. I mean, you go look at what the DNC is going through. It's a total mess because number one, they're not. They have had a lot of problems lately, but they've been trying to tip the scales and doing all the things that I know a lot of grassroots people are always worried about. And I always try to explain to people that, and I understand some of the negative mystique that a national party brings with it, but I just tell people there's nothing controversial about a national party that has its act together on the ground and with data. It's a lot of boring stuff that I'm in charge of. Most of it's not exciting. But we all can at least understand that if we're competent on the mechanics and we're competent on the work that we need to do, and we're not playing favorites, but we're offering our work to our eventual nominee to take advantage of that work product, we can be more successful. We could not win elections without a competent national party. As irritating as sometimes the party can be to people, it's a necessary function that we serve. Well, yeah, the irritation sometimes has been rooted in promises on a campaign trail that don't eventuate governance. But look, we're a little time constraint here, and I do want to ask you about one other thing that we are hearing a lot of. And I just want to admit to you that I've got my flags are pink right now. They haven't turned red. I'm hearing, of course, the Democrats, common. Every time they lose, the first thing they do is sue for peace and start demanding unity, and we all must come together. What they mean is we need to pretend we didn't win, and we need to make sure that we don't tear apart whatever their agenda and their achievements have been, and we work together going forward. And I expect them to do that, but I get nervous when I hear Republicans start talking about the need for magnanimity and unity and coming together. The American people didn't vote for that. The American people defeated Hillary Clinton. They voted for Trump to defeat Hillary and defeated Democrats. They have less power than they've ever had in the 1920s. We've got greater opportunities today than at any time in my life, Mr. Priebus, since the 1980s at least, to really implement the agenda that the Republican Party and the conservative movement have always been known for. Low 100%. Governments, low... 100% agree. 100% agree with you. I agree with you. It's important to make peace. I'm all for that, and it's important to stop the campaign. But I'll tell you what, it's also the opportunity to do the will of the people. And the will of the people is exactly as you outlined. We have won everything, up and down the ticket.